Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars all over Britain, owls flying in daylight, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place, and a whisper spelled the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room, carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. He'd have to say something to her. He cleared his throat nervously. Petunia, dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? As he expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. After all, they normally pretended she didn't have a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Funny stuff from the news. Mr. Dursley mumbled at owls shooting stars. And there were a lot of funny-looking people in town today. So, snapped Mrs. Dursley. Well, I thought maybe it was something to do with, a lot. But Mrs. Dursley sipped the tea through pursed lips. Mr. Dursley wondered whether he dared to tell her that he heard the name Potter. He decided that he didn't dare. Instead, he said as curiously now as he could, "Their son, he'd been about Dursley's age now, and he..." "I suppose so," said Miss Dursley stiffly. "What's his name again? Howard, isn't it?" "Harry, nasty common name, you asked me." "Oh yes," said Mr. Dursley, his heart sinking horribly. "Yes, I quite agree." He didn't say another word on the subject as they went upstairs to bed. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom, Mr. Dursley crept to the bedroom window and peered down into the front garden. The cat was still there. It was staring down Bird Drive as though it was waiting for something. He was imagining things. See, could all of this be anything to do with the Potters if he did? If it got out of there, they were related to a pair of... Well, he didn't think he could bear it. The Dursleys got into bed. Mrs. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning it all over his mind. His last comforting through before he fell asleep was that even if the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him. And Mrs. Dursley, the Potters knew very well what he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. He couldn't see how he and Petunia could get mixed up in anything that might be going on. He yawned and turned over. It couldn't affect them. How very strong he was. Mr. Dursley might have been drifting into an uneasy sleep, but the cat on the wall outside was showing no sign of sleepiness. It was still the statue, his eyes fixed unblinkingly on the far corner of Privet Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when the car door slammed in the next street, nor when 2 owls swooped overhead. In fact, it was nearly midnight before the cat had moved at all. A man appeared on the corner that cat had been watching, appeared so suddenly and silently you have ever thought he'd just popped out of the ground. The cat's tail twitched and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever seen in Privet Drive. He was tall, thin and very old, judging by the silver of his hair and beard, which was both long and half tucked into his belt. He was wearing long robes, a purple cloak, which swept the ground, and high-heeled, buckled boots. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, though it had been broken at least twice. This man's name was Albus Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore didn't seem to realise that he had just arrived in a street where everything from his name to his boots was unwelcome. He was busy rummaging in his cloak, looking for something, but he didn't seem to realise he was being watched because he looked up suddenly at the cat, which was still staring at him from the other end of the street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. He chuckled and muttered, "I should have known he had found what he was looking for in his inside pocket." It seemed to be a silver cigarette lighter. He flicked it open and held it up in the air and clicked it. The new street lamp went out with a little pop. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered out the darkness. 12 times he clicked the put outer until the only lights left in the whole street were two tiny pinpricks in the distance, which were the eyes of the cat watching him. If anyone looked out of their window now, even beady eyes, Mrs. Dursley wouldn't be able to see anything that was happening down on the pavement. Dumbledore slipped the put outer back inside the cloak and set off down on the street towards number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke to it. "Something seeing you here, Professor McGonagall." He turned to smile at Tabby, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a rather sad-looking woman who was wearing a square glasses exactly the shape of the markings the cat had around its eyes. She, too, was wearing a cloak and emerald on. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distantly ruffled. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "My dear Professor, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly. You've been stiff. If you've been sitting on a brick wall all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day, when you could have been celebrating. I must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh yes, everyone's celebrating, all right," she said impatiently. "You'd think they'd be a bit more careful, but no. The Muggles have noticed something going on. It was on the news." She jerked at her back at the Dursley's dark living room window. "I heard it for the flocks of owls shooting stars." Well, they're not obviously stupid. They were bound to notice something. Shooting stars down in Kent. I'll bet. That was Daedalus Diggle. He never had much sense. "You can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. "We've had a precious little to celebrate for 11 years. And I know that," said Professor McGonagall irritably, "but that's no reason to lose our heads. People are being downright careless on the streets in broad daylight, not even McGonagall clothes, swapping rumors. He threw a sharp, up sideways glance at Dumbledore, or at here as though hoping he was going to tell us something, but he didn't. So she went on. I think it will be on the very day you know who seemed to have disappeared at last. The muggles found out about us all. I suppose he really has gone, Dumbledore. It certainly seems so, said Dumbledore. We have much to be thankful for. Would you care for a sherbet lemon? And what? A sherbet lemon? A kind of muggle fruit. I'm rather fond of. No thank you, said Professor Goggle coldly, as though she didn't think she was the moment for sherbet lemons. As I say, even if you know who has gone. My dear Professor, surely a sensible person like yourself could call him by his name. All this, you know who, nonsense for 11 years. I've been trying to persuade people to be called him a proper name. Voldemort, Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbledore, who was sticking to sherbet lemon, seemed